There we go. I'll give it one more minute. Okay, I want to be considerate of everyone's time. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's webinar, this afternoon's webinar. My name is Paula McCain. I'm a recovery business advisor with the North Central Texas Small Business Development Center. Today is National Fajita Day. So after this, go get fajitas. The SBDC is the leading provider of assistance for small businesses. We are grant funded, and because of that, we are able to provide webinars and assistance to you at no cost. Today's webinar is the top 10 mistakes hackers want you to make. And if you could put all your questions in the chat room, and we'll address them as they come up. Presenting today is Eric Spellmann. Eric is an established leader in helping customers meet online goals through practical hands-on application. He's a featured speaker at national technology conferences and has been labeled the technology evangelist. His website is consistently ranks at the top of numerous Google searches. Eric, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. Or do y'all need to say anything else?
No, go for it.
Here we go then. Okay. Now, just like they said, if you have any questions, please ask. This is ground zero. There is no dumb question. If you do ask a silly question, I'll make fun of Paula, but not you. So ask anything you want, okay? That's what this is about. Because trust me, a lot of people assume you know all of this stuff, and heck, why would you? Because a lot of you have never run into it. So let's get going as we dive into the top 10 mistakes hackers want you to make. And by the way, one last thing. There's a lot of topics that I do speak on. My YouTube channel is there, and we just broke 1.8 million views. So just look me up, Eric Spellmann videos, or just go to ericspellmann.com and you can see all of them. You don't have to buy anything, just watch them and learn. Okay, here we go. Top 10 mistakes hackers want you to make. One of the first things you need to understand, and I told you this would not be full of tech terminology. Okay, this presentation is not designed for nerds. It's not designed for geeks. This is designed for small business owners. Okay, so you're in the right place. And I'm not going to use a lot of high-tech terms. And if I do throw out a term that I think you don't know, I'll explain it to you. So let's start at the very beginning. Because let me just tell you right now, there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all security solution. There is none. What one company does isn't necessarily what you should do. And what you should do, you can't go tell someone else to do. So you've got to find a balance for your company. And that balance is basically between security and convenience. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I'm in Amarillo, Texas, and our biggest employer is the Pantex nuclear weapons plant. Okay, it's where they upgrade and dismantle every nuclear weapon in the whole country. And so there's a lot of people who work there. Now, you have to assume that the security is very high, and it is. I mean, they do eye scans. You have to go by multiple people with guns. And there's thumbprint readers. I mean, they have separate systems that are, classified versus unclassified computers on everyone's desk. I mean, there's a lot you have to go through. Now, the problem with that is that it's not very convenient. I can't just go to the most secure place in there. I can't just walk in. There is no convenience whatsoever for me. And that's because the security blocks me. But we also have a public park in Amarillo. We actually have quite a few. And I can walk to any park 24 hours a day and walk to the center of it, and no one will stop me. In other words, I have high security in a park. I mean, high convenience in a park, but low security. Whereas at Pentex, it's high security and low convenience. Now, those are the extremes, and you can understand why those extremes exist. Because the more convenience you give yourself, the less security you're going to have. And the more security that you implement, the less convenience you're going to have. I'll be honest with you. You want to know who the number one breakers of security rules are? You. That's right, the business owner. If anyone's going to make an exception to their own rules, it's going to be you. And I don't mean to be the one, sharing these sad news, this kind of embarrassing news with you, but you're going to be the one who calls from an airport telling your secretary, hey, give me the password. I can't find it. I forgot it. I need to log in. You're going to be the one that breaks your own rules. And so I want you to understand the ramifications of that. And I want you to understand that the hackers know you're going to do that. And they're going to take advantage of that. So part of this issue is you have got to find that balance between security and convenience. You've got to realize that when you make those exceptions, you weaken your own security. It's like when someone at your office says, oh, you make me log in every day. I'm in the back office. No one's ever going to come in here. I lock my door. Can't we just make it? Hey, Mr. Tech Guy, can't you just make my computer where it automatically logs in? And what are they going to do? Say no? Of course not, especially since you're the boss and you're going to make an exception to the rule. And that's kind of where one of these threats come from. And I like to call it the telephone threat. You've got to realize that hackers are lazy. A lot of us think that hackers are like what we see in Hollywood. They're sitting surrounded by a bunch of blinky light towers, or they're just sitting there in their apartment on a laptop and just clickety clack breaking into NORAD. No, hackers are lazy. You need to realize that. They are very lazy. And most hackers don't know even how to technically hack. Okay? What most of them are is what we call social engineers. They're con artists. And they would rather make a phone call to trick you. Like, how many of you, and I don't want to see a show of hands because I know it's all of you, how many of you have received a phone call from someone offering to extend your car warranty? We get those every day. Those are social engineers. Those are hackers. You don't think they're hackers because it's a phone call. But I'm here to tell you it's the easiest way for me to break into your company. If I can pretend to be someone that I'm not, I can have access to everything. So realize it's going to be the first thing they try. It's not going to be one of these Hollywood, they're across the world and they're going to hack through a whole bunch of systems just to get to you. I'll be honest, your Visa card ain't worth it. Okay? It's going to be the smaller hackers that don't even know this technical mumbo jumbo. So here's going to be one rule, and some of y'all are going to be upset with me when I tell you this. Trust me, I fully expect a few of you to hang up on this call because I'm going to make you angry. But I'm just here to tell you this is how most people get hacked. And when you hear about it in the news, when you hear about these companies being held ransom, do you want to know how most of it starts? A phone call from someone claiming to be someone they're not. So here's rule number one, and you better not break it. Never give passwords over the phone to anyone. And I mean anyone. I don't care if you know it's your boss. I don't care if the phone number coming in says it's your boss's cell phone number. I don't care if it sounds just like them and they know the answer to everything. You should never, ever, 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 ever give a password over the phone. And by the way, if I'm a hacker, do you know who I'm going to call? Am I going to call one of your vice presidents? Am I going to call one of your tech people? No. I'm going to call the person who has the least amount of security training. And do you know who that is? Your secretary, your receptionist, your frontline operator. It is the easiest way for me to get what I want because all I need is one little key in to get in your castle walls. And guess who has that key? Your secretary, your receptionist, the operator. I'm telling you, you've got to implement this rule. And yeah, it's going to hurt because you're going to be traveling somewhere and you're going to forget something and you've got a meeting in 5 minutes and you need access. I'm sorry. The way to handle that is callback verification. So if this ever does happen, you're going to call your office and have them call you on the number they know. Okay? You're simply going to call them and say, "Hey, this is Eric Spellmann, whoever your boss is. I need a password to blah 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 blah." Don't ever give it to them if they're the ones calling in. So you make your office call you back and hand dial your number that they know. Okay? But I'll be honest, you really don't want to do that. You really don't want to have to get yourself into this situation anyway. And so you better hang on to the end of this presentation because I'm going to be giving you some really good strategies on remembering passwords. I have over 100 passwords and I know them all and I will never forget them. And it's not because I have a good memory. It's because I have a strategy. And I'll explain that to you at the end. So stick around, even if you hate me by the time we get to the middle. And hey, Mr. Boss, you got to test your own system. That's right. You got to test your own system. I want you to grab a friend of yours, maybe even your wife or your husband, whoever, and have them randomly call your office and pretend to be you and see how far they get. See what they can get. See what information they can get. It's going to scare the hell out of you because here's the deal. People want to please the boss and they will make exceptions if they think they're talking to the boss. And guess who knows that little fact? Hackers. Social engineering, I promise you, is really the number one way hackers get into your systems. Next, you got to start using that shredder. I told you that hackers are lazy. The first thing they're going to do, they're not going to sit behind their computer and, like you see on TV, they're going to, hack into your system and control it remote. No, you have to have half a brain cell to be able to do that. And these hackers don't. They're lazy. They're con men. And so one of the things they love to do because it's so easy is dumpster diving. That's right. They're going to go through the trash that you throw out every day. The trash in your dumpster, the trash in your trash cans outside of your office. Why break into your office? I don't have to. I can just go through your trash at 2 a.m. No one's going to stop me. They'll just think I'm some homeless person. They won't even remember I was there. Or I might pull up in my pickup and just load it up with all of your trash bags and take them somewhere where I won't be watched. And so we call that little thing dumpster diving. Okay. And trust me, that was going on long before the internet even existed. Okay. And trust me, I've tested a few companies. They asked me to test them on this, and I did over the period of a month. And I had passwords to half of their employees. Why? Because what happens when you change your password? You write it down on a sticky. So you know what I look for? Stickies. Sticky notes are the most valuable piece of paper in your trash. Just so you know, people will write down everything on them. They will write down account numbers. They will write down phone numbers. They will write down what? Passwords. I could care less about some of the reports you print out. I'm looking for sticky notes. with usernames and passwords on them. And some of you right now are sweating a little bit because you know that's you. I'm just here. I'm just calling it like I see it. And I'm telling you, you're not alone. But the problem is, you don't want to be the reason that your company goes down. And when you get a shredder, if you're a business owner, you'd better go check that shredder out. Because you might be one of those people that you buy it and it lasts forever. You know? Problem is, the old shredders were strip shredders. In other words, all they did was cut the paper into long strips. Well, guess what? There are companies in India that I can send bags and bags of strip shreds, and they have rooms full of people, sometimes children, and those people will put them back together for me at like $4 a page, and then they'll send them back to me or take pictures of them and send them back. That really does happen. I've seen it. If your shredders are the old kind of strip shredders that cut it into long strips, you're just asking for trouble. You truly are. You must make sure that every single one of your shredders are what we call cross-cut shredders, where not only does it cut it into long strips, but it cuts it into confetti. And the better the confetti, the better. You know, I was telling you about Pantex. They don't have shredders at all. They have something called the Monster. You're saying, how do you know all this? Well, people talk. They have something called the Monster. And you throw everything in the Monster. Because not only does it grind it, shred it, it burns it. All you get is ash when it's all said and done. And I don't even know what they do with that. But they throw everything in it, like even hard drives and computers. Trust me, I think you could probably get rid of an employee that way. There'd be no evidence. It's called the Monster. But none of us can afford that. So what I want you to make sure is that you can afford a cross-cut shredder. And the smaller confetti you can make, the more secure you are. Now, what should you put in the cross-cut shredder? Do your employees even know what can go in there? No, they don't, because you've never told them. All you've said is, in chances are, and you're saying, how do you know this, Eric? Because I've talked to enough of you. So most of your employees, it takes too long to shred, so they just throw it in the trash. You may have said something like, well, if it has customer data on it, shred it. And that's the only instruction they ever got. But did you ever say anything about usernames and passwords? Did you ever say anything about account numbers, login credentials, employee names? No. All you said was, if it has customer information on it, shred it. But some of you use your printer like it's going out of style, and you create these huge old reports, big old thick, almost book level reports. And do you know how long that would take to shred? And because some of y'all are cheap and you won't buy a fast shredder. So your receptionist or whoever, your clerical person, will have to sit there and feed maybe 2 sheets at a time. And guess what? They're not going to do it. So they'll let it stack up. And then they'll look at that stack and go, you know what? I just don't have time. And what do? They just throw it away. Because they'll justify it by saying, you know what? There's really nothing on here that can hurt us. I hope that's true as a hacker. I hope, because that's how I can go in and get every name of every customer you have, all the numbers important. I can learn the terminology that you use, because you've got some lazy employees and you have cheap shredders. So guess what, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, I am giving you homework. And what I want you to do at least twice a month, and if you've never done this, I want you to do it once a week, is I want you to stay after everyone goes home. That's right, you're going to stay after close. But before the janitorial staff get there. And I just want you to go to every single office and put on some big old rubber gloves, and I want you to go through their trash. I'm serious. I know that sounds gross, and you'll probably be going through some food and maybe even some coffee cups. But I'm telling you, it's going to freak you out what you find in your employee trash cans. You assume they're following the rules, but no one's ever verified. And guess what? They're not doing it. And a whole bunch of your classified, personal, customer information that you could be sued out of existence with is going right into the trash can. Like I said, the first month, I don't even want you to tell your employees you're doing anything. Don't make a new rule. I just want you to set the bar. I want you to find out currently what is going out. Now, yeah, when you do find something that should be in their trash can, yes, pull it and get and shred it and do the right thing. But what I'm saying is don't get anyone in trouble. Then you're going to make a policy because trust me, they're going to see you walk in white as a sheet and you're going to make a policy and basically say, people, we got to do better. And you need to make a list of everything that gets shredded, not just cut the vague customer data. And by the way, I'll just tell you this. One rule you need to have is every single sticky note. I don't care what's on it. Every single sticky note gets shredded. I don't care. Even if it's just got a phone number on it, shred it. People have got to get out of the habit of just throwing away sticky notes. Because that's what the hacker looks for first. That's what the dumpster diver looks for first. There's another way around this. If you don't trust your own employees, or if the data that you're dealing with is just way too classified, secure, is you can use a third-party solution. There are people who will, for a price, they will bring you a canister, a locked trash can, if you will. It has a big slot in it, and there's a padlock on it. And you just tell your people to start throwing all their stuff in there. And what they do is they will take it back to their industrial shredder, kind of like what Pantex has. And they will give you a certificate proving and documenting that it was securely destroyed. And trust me, if you ever get sued, that certificate will help you immensely. And they're not expensive, I'll be honest. They're really not. And they will drive right up to your place and they will come as often as you want. And all they'll do is pick up their own canister and give you a new one. They'll take that locked canister back to their place and they will dump it into their own version of the monster. And they will give you a certificate saying it was all destroyed. And trust me, it could be the difference between you existing as a company next year. So who uses your PC? You need to ask that question. You know, some of y'all might say, well, at the office, only I do. Okay. What about at your house? You're the boss, right? Who uses your PC at the house? Who uses your laptop? You got kids? Uh-huh. Tell me you've never let them use your laptop or your PC even once. Tell me that when your kids come visit you at the office, you've never sat them down because you needed to take a call and you pulled up some game for them to play on your office PC. And you needed to get something done. And so you set them up to watch a video or set them up to play a little game, something so they wouldn't just wander around. And how many times have you ever had a slumber party over at your house for your kids? Middle of the night, you're in bed. Kids sneak in, they use your PC, they use your laptop. I'm telling you, this happens so often it's not even funny. Maybe you just have one family PC. You know, the kids may not be old enough to have their own technology. And so you let them use your laptop, your PC, the one that has access to what? Your finances. The one that you what? Copied your entire QuickBooks file onto. Who uses your PC? I'm not even saying they're bad people. I'm talking about kids. I'm talking about your kids. Or I'm talking about someone who might come to visit at Thanksgiving or Christmas, a relative. You know, someone who just needs to use your PC to check on something. And oh, by the way, when they get into it, oh, it's going to say, hey, Windows firewall needs to make an exception. Is that okay? And they're going to say yes, because they need to hook into their system. But do you think they ever undo what they did? No, they don't. Also, you got to realize that maybe someone who's not family at your office could come in and copy a lot to a thumb drive. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Because a lot of people, I'm telling you, it happens at lunch. But like I said, well-meaning relatives could forget to close the barn door. They had to open up your system from a security standpoint, and they forget to close it. And then when they leave, your system is wide open. Or maybe your nephew or your niece, teenagers, were accessing something they shouldn't have been accessing, and now hackers now have access to everything on your PC or laptop. That's why I ask, where is your old data? You know, let me tell you one of the big ways hackers can steal your data. And once again, it's not technology wise. If I was going to steal the data on your computer, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, what I would do is go out and get some brown pants and a short sleeve brown shirt and a brown hat that says UPS on it. And then I would get a little dolly, little push truck, and a clipboard, and I would walk right into your office at 12:01 p.m. with, of course, a couple of empty boxes. They don't know they're empty. And here's what I'll say. Hey, this is an order for, and I'll give your boss's name because I've already researched that just by calling your office and asking who it is. And I'll say, these are really heavy. And they say personal and important. Can I just put them on their floor in their office? And what do you think the receptionist who was left there all alone at lunch? There's no employees there, who's answering the phones like crazy because all of y'all are out to lunch. And I happen to know that your boss is out to lunch, and I've been watching it for a while. So I know he's out to lunch until exactly 1 o'clock. So then she'll point where it is because she's on the phone. And I'll just go back to his office, go inside, shut the door, and know that I have 1 hour to do anything I want. And because your boss is at lunch, he didn't log all the way out because he was in the middle of something when he went to lunch. So I will sit down, put my thumb drive into his computer, and copy everything I want. Maybe even install a little virus so I can get in whenever I want. Probably only take me 10 minutes. Then I take the boxes and go out and leave. And do you think the receptionist is even going to say anything to the boss? Will she remember my face? No, because I was just the UPS guy. That is the most low-tech but most successful way to steal data from any company is the lunchtime hack. And it works more than you realize. So where is all of your old data? Chances are some of you, and I don't want to see a show of hands because you ought to be embarrassed. Some of you have cases and cases of old floppy disks. Those little 3.5 inches, or if you're really bad, if you're really a hoarder, ought to be on reality TV, then you might even have some of those 5.25 inch disks. They really are floppy. And you don't know why you have them. You can't even use them anymore. You don't have any devices that would read them anymore, but they're sitting there. And trust me, hackers have those devices. And that data lives forever. I know everyone says, well, it goes away over time. No, it doesn't. It lives forever. And you won't even notice when those cases and cases of floppy disk are missing one day. You'll probably be secretly thankful that they're finally just gone. So here's what I'm saying. If you have any floppy disk left, you need to get rid of them. You need to have them destroyed, not thrown away. Do not throw them in the dumpster. You need to have them destroyed. And if you want to have fun, take them out and just go to town, create a bonfire, whatever you want to do, or give them to a third-party shredder. But you've got to get rid of them. You know good and well you're never going to stick another floppy disk in a drive again. You've got to get rid of them. They are a weak point in your security strategy. But you want to know what a bigger weak point is? That's right, thumb drives. I can't tell you. I'll even tell you how this works. I'll even tell you how this happens. Okay? It's when you fire somebody. You know, a lot of times, one of your employees that you've been meaning to fire, and trust me, one of the best advice I ever got from anybody, they always say, Eric, business owners always take too long to fire and they take too long to hire. And it's so true. And when you take too long to fire somebody, they know they're going to be fired. They've sensed it. They know it's coming. And they've already been getting their resume ready. And chances are they've already been collecting some information that might be valuable to your competitor, which they're going to apply to, because that's what they do. And so what will they do? Many times they will just copy your customer list, maybe something as simple as that, and put it on a thumb drive and walk out the door with it. You're saying, well, what can I do? What can I do? That's probably one of the toughest things to stop, because I'm just here to tell you it's next to impossible. You know, out at Pantex, none of the computers will take a thumb drive. Can't. It's impossible. They're not allowed to. There's no way to copy data to anything out there. Now that's zero convenience, but high security. Are you starting to understand the balance? Thumb drives aren't part of security, they're part of convenience. And also, do you know where a lot of these thumb drives are found? Airports. You know, you're going out of town, so you need to work on your data. So you'll copy it to a thumb drive and take it with you so you can work on it on the plane, huh? Problem is, you're taking everything out of your pockets and trying to get through security, and somehow that thumb drive just falls out of your pocket. You just lose it and it's gone. In the wrong hands, it could be the death of your company. I've seen it happen. Thumb drives are the most convenient, but the most insecure gizmo on the planet. And like I said, I've seen companies go down because of a thumb drive. And also, CDs and DVDs. You know, some of y'all go, well, we don't have any floppy disk anymore. Yeah. What about CDs? Do you ever burn a CD? You know, did you ever back up your data to CDs or DVDs? If you've been around a while, you did. Trust me. It's not the oldest technology out there, and you can still read them in today's computers. Problem is, the way that technology works, that data lasts forever. It's not like hard disk where it's all magnetic and eventually it can kind of go away, weaken. No, CDs and DVDs last forever. And the best thing you could do is if you have CDs and DVDs that maybe you were using for backup, you need to smash them, destroy them. You can even buy shredders that will eat them. And I tell people that all the time. Pay a little more for a shredder. Get one that can eat CDs and DVDs. Get one that'll even eat credit cards. Trust me, that's what I do when one of my credit cards is done. I'll just shred the thing. It's worth it to spend 20 more bucks for a shredder that can actually do these things. You also need to start shopping from secure sites. Some of you love shopping, okay? Online shopping. And you know, when we went through the last lockdown, some of you got very good at it. And some of you appreciated the convenience that came with it. And some of you still do it way more than maybe you should. The problem is some of you went to some sites that weren't necessarily on what we call the good side of town. So I have to keep reminding people always when you're in a browser, you know, like Chrome or Microsoft Explorer or whatever they're calling it now, or Firefox or whatever, make sure that you see the little padlock in the top left next to the address, the web address of where you're going. If you don't see that padlock, that means that all the information going between you and their server is out in the open, and anyone can intercept that and anyone can read it, which means if you entered your credit card number on a site to order something and that padlock was not there, it would be possible for me to see your credit card number and that little 3-digit on the back and all the passwords you've typed. You've always got to have that lock. Also, if it's a site that is not national, a site not like Amazon, not like, some of the big Walmart.com, some of the big ones. If you're going to a site for kind of a specialty thing that you can only find on this site, you might want to read their privacy policy. You see, every website, most people don't know this, every website that collects any kind of information, even if you have a contact us form, even if that's all you have on your website where you collect information is a, hey, contact us, and they can fill out name, email, whatever. It is the law, it is federal law that any website that asks for any kind of information must have a privacy policy. And by the way, if your website doesn't, like at the bottom, and it doesn't say privacy policy, yeah, you can get put out of business. But anyway, the privacy policy basically states what you're going to do with any information you collect from your customers or from prospects. And it usually says something to the effect of, any information we collect will only be used for internal purposes and will not be sold or given to a third party, blah, blah, blah. But they're going to take like 20 legal paragraphs to say that. Some of these privacy policies don't say that. Some of these privacy policies say something different. And because they tell you up front what they're doing with this information, you can't sue them when they give or sell your information to other companies. Like I said, the national companies don't do this, but there are some sketchy companies that do. And if you're about to do business with a company that you've never done business with, Google them. Look up some reviews, please. See what people are saying about them. It will save you so much heartache, I promise. And verify the address. I remember one time I went to yahoo.com, but I accidentally put one extra O. So it was Yahoo, right? 3 O's. Yahoo.com with an extra O. Didn't even notice I did that. Didn't even notice I mistyped it. And back in the day, there was actually a con artist site that had registered that domain. And when I went there, guess what? It looked just like Yahoo. Looked just like them. And it asked me to log in to get my email. And so guess what happened? I typed in my username and my password. And their little fake Yahoo site popped up a message saying, sorry, you entered that wrong. And then it redirected me to the correct Yahoo site. And I just assumed, I guess I got it wrong, but I didn't realize I got redirected to the correct one. So then when I logged in, it worked. But guess what? That con artist site now had. They captured my Yahoo login information. I'm telling you, make sure you're going to the right address. It's like, remember back in the day when the internet was new and people didn't know that White House, to get to see the White House on the internet meant going to whitehouse.gov. And so people would always type in whitehouse.com. And do y'all remember what whitehouse.com was back then? It was a porn site designed by people who knew the mistake people like you would make. I'm telling you, verify the address of where you're going. I would have never known that someone just stole my Yahoo address. And trust me, it happens with Gmail, happened with AOL, up to a lot of people. Whatever your email is, you get it off by one little bit, you could be giving your login credentials to a hacker. And by the way, when they have your login information, guess what they can do? get all the confirmation emails from any shopping they do. They can sign up for all sorts of accounts because from that point forward, they have uh, they have all the information they need to receive those confirmation emails. Did I see something pop up, Paula? Was there a question?
Yeah, it was mine. You're talking about Yahoo and Gmail.
Mhm.
Is there any one email provider, service, whatever, that is the most secure or more secure? I've had Yahoo email hacked several times, but my Gmail has not.
There isn't one that's better than the other, to be honest. In fact, the kind of hacking I was talking about could happen in Gmail as well. But I will tell you this, I have Gmail accounts, okay? And that's just kind of where I hang out. It's not because let me just tell you what my strategy is. From a security standpoint, always go with the biggest company. The reason I say that is because the biggest company can hire the PhD level security people, okay? Whereas if you go with Uncle Harold's server in his garage, he's not going to be able to, he's not going to have that same level or expertise on security. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell people go with the biggest company you can. And to be honest, Gmail is the biggest company. You know, Google is the biggest company. Regardless of what you think of them, they're going to have the best security of anybody simply because they've got the best employees. And Apple is a good one too. You know, Apple's a great company. And so a lot of people have Apple addresses or iCloud addresses, whatever. But go with a big company that has the resources to actually stop a lot of these threats before they even get to you. It's kind of like back in the medieval days. You should always stay behind the strongest castle walls, okay? Because the enemy will always attack the weakest castles first. Okay, good question. Okay, don't stay logged in. Like, especially at lunch, people, especially at lunch, okay? You need to log out. If you're leaving that PC, either have it automatically log out. It's because when you stay logged in, whether it's logged into QuickBooks, logged into your email, logged into whatever, and especially at home, you may even have it auto log in for you. So you don't have to remember your password. It's basically, you have a padlock, sure do, but you just leave the key in it, and anyone who walks up to it can open it. It's like you have no security. And like I told you earlier, remember the UPS trick? Yeah. The most vulnerable security time for your company is lunch. It ain't after hours. It ain't before hours. Remember, I told you hackers are lazy. They probably don't even get up till 10 a.m. They're going to go at lunch because they know you're gone and they've been watching to make sure that's true. And most people have a very set pattern. Most people have a little, especially bosses, they have their little routine. And hackers figured that out. So let's talk about the virus threat. Some of y'all thought this whole thing was going to be about viruses. I'm telling you, this is all about, I told you, hackers are lazy. But when we talk about viruses, now we're getting to some of the, okay, Brett asked, are Macs more secure than PCs? That used to be the case. That used to be, not anymore. And it's not that, because a lot of people say, oh, Apples are better because everything's controlled by Apple, and so nothing gets in that doesn't go by Apple, whereas PCs let everyone in. It's not that Macs are better anymore. It's that the hackers are better on both sides of it. And also, the technology being used is bypassing whether it's Apple or whether it's Android. See, I have Android. I used to have an iPhone. Now I have an Android. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I just like my options that I have with Android. And if I truly thought that Apple was more secure, I would switch back to an iPhone. But the key is most of the problems we run in today, especially the virus threat, happen on both platforms. Okay? But I will tell you this. The people who use Macs the actual Mac computers, not the phones. The people who use the actual Mac computers tend to not see as many viruses as everyone else, only because there aren't that many of you. And hackers are going to try to hit the largest group possible. And so if they're going to design a program, a virus, they're going to design it for PCs first. Because to be honest, there aren't enough Mac people to even matter to get their notice. But the good hackers will do programs for both. And there are now systems that will immediately translate a PC program into a Mac virus. Okay. So it's not that Macs are better, it's just there's less of you. And so the hackers are lazy and they want to go after the biggest group. We're going to talk about the different types of viruses that are out there. And I'm going to go into each one because you need to understand them. And I'll be honest, pay close attention because they're the problem we're having today. And when you see stuff in the news, it's all about what I'm about to tell you. First kind of viruses, and they were the first kind to ever exist, were the file infectors. Then we had Trojan horses, stealth viruses, worms, polymorphic, which I just love saying the word. Trust me, you can impress people at parties if you can just say the word. And then finally, ransomware. And ransomware is where we are today. But let me get you there. First, file infectors. These were the first viruses that ever came out. And I remember when they did. And it was scary. And they still exist. And some of the old ones are still out there. It's basically, a file infector is a program that attaches to a good program. So that every time you run the good program, the virus also runs. Because you got to remember, a program can't do anything if it's not running, if you're not using it, if you don't double click on it. It's just sitting on a hard disk. It has to get activated. And so everyone knows you're not going to double click on an icon that says bad virus. But they do know that you will double click on Microsoft Word. So here's what happens. Maybe you put in a thumb drive, and the thumb drive had a virus on it. And so a virus is now running in your system. It's not saved anywhere. It's just running. And what this virus is going to do is it's going to look for a place to infect. It's almost like COVID, you think about it. And so it's going to find a good program like Microsoft Word, a good host. And it's going to copy itself and attach itself to Microsoft Word because it knows that you're going to turn that PC off at some point. But now, since it attached itself to Microsoft Word, every time you double click on Microsoft Word, guess what you are now doing? You're running the virus. And it's going to look for other programs. And it might send copies of itself through your email to your other employees. Yeah, viruses spread just like biological viruses do, but they have to have a host. That's what a file infector is. It looks for hosts and infects them, and then uses those hosts to send copies of itself looking for other hosts. Trojan horses. It's a different kind of virus. Basically, it's a program that promises you one thing when actually it does something else. A lot of the old games were like that. You know, that kids would be on the internet and they'd be on some crazy website and it would say, play this solitaire game, play this shoot 'em up asteroids kind of game, just click here. And so they would click there and nothing would happen, but in effect it did. They would run their little game and it was actually a virus. It was never a game to begin with. And it was a Trojan horse. And they think it just didn't work, when in fact it did. When they activated the Trojan horse, remember, it pretended to be something it wasn't, then it opened up a hole in the system so that other viruses could come in, or it became a file infector at that point. Trojan horses are all about what they promise to be. Okay? And Trojan horses can simply open the way for file infectors. Stealth viruses. Now, these are starting to get creepy. I remember when these first came out because it almost scared me, you know, very matrixy kind of stuff here. Because stealth viruses can actually hide. Stealth viruses know that you're coming. Stealth viruses can actually detect, hear me, they can actually detect that you have antivirus running. And they will hide from the antivirus program until it goes by. And then they'll come back. That's why we call them stealth viruses. It takes a lot to make a stealth virus. But basically, a stealth virus is one that can hide from antivirus. And it knows when you're about to do a scan. And it hides until the scan goes by. And then it comes back out. And some of y'all are going, oh, that sounds so like it's alive. I know. I told you. It creeped me out first time I learned about them. But the good news on stealth viruses is that they're very difficult to create. They're very complex because the hackers have to understand how all of the antivirus programs work in order to defeat them. This is the impress people at parties virus called the polymorphic virus. But it's also the scariest virus. Well, not anymore. Not as of 2 years ago, but it is one of the scariest viruses out there. It's called the polymorphic virus. And basically what it does is it actually changes its shape. It changes what it looks like. You see, do you know how antivirus programs work? What they basically do is they know what a virus looks like. And so they scan your entire system looking for that exact code. And if they find that exact code that they know is a virus, they can get rid of it. Because a virus is simply a computer program. And even if it copies itself a dozen times, it's still the same line by line set of code. And it can be easily searched for. Polymorphic viruses are able to change themselves. They don't get smarter. They're not evolving. No, this isn't Terminator, okay? They just change what they look like. That way, antivirus programs can't find them. And they're near impossible to find because most antivirus programs look for that. You remember how your antivirus program would always download the latest definitions? Do you know what it's actually downloading? It's like downloading a face shots of convicts and then searching your entire hard drive for that face. These viruses can change their appearance so that they can't get found. Believe it or not, those aren't the scariest viruses anymore. Worms, you don't need to worry about. I'll just be honest with you. They are scary, but not for most people. And that's because worms don't go after you. Worms go after the big fish. Worms go after companies. And they only have one job. Their job is to open up a network. Believe it or not, they were some of the first viruses ever made, back before you and I could even get on the internet. Worms are designed to crack into systems. They're designed to break through network security. All they do is open a hole. That's all they do. They burrow into a network and open a hole, and then allowing something else to get in. That's all they do. It's like they knock a hole in the wall of your castle, and then once they do that, then everything else can come through. They have one purpose, but they usually stay on the network, like the internet. They live on the internet, and they're going after larger companies. They're not going after you for the most part, and they don't hurt anything. The only way they hurt something is if they copy themselves so much it just overwhelms or overloads a system. One of the things that hackers do is they create what we call zombie PCs. So for instance, if you've ever noticed that every once in a while, very large companies get taken down, even if just for a few minutes, how is someone able to take down an entire company like Google that has network connections all around the world? What they do is they get enough zombies. The way you get a zombie is you get enough PCs that maybe kids downloaded the same game and they installed the zombie. And now their system can be controlled by a hacker. But their little system, that little PC, isn't enough to do anything. But if you get 1,000 of them, if you get 10,000, if you get 500,000 of these systems, and you can send one command and get 500,000 systems all sending garbage traffic to Google, you can take down Google. We've seen that. Technically, those are kind of like worms. And it's a sheer force of attack. It's a sheer numbers deal because Google can't stop 500,000 home PCs at the same time. But folks, this is the bad one. And this is the one that I'm seeing in tech companies left and right. Even here in Amarillo, it's happened. And it continues to happen. It's called ransomware. And it works. Basically, your system is hacked. So step one, and usually it's a social engineering hack. Someone breaks into your system. Usually they log in as the boss. They get the admin password somehow, usually by calling and convincing someone of who they are. And once they have admin access to your server, you know where all of your data for your entire company is. If they can get access into that room, if they can get access into that system, then they will run a little program. And what this program does is it encrypts the entire hard drive. In other words, it scrambles it, but not chaotically, not destructively. It encrypts it. In other words, it scrambles it in a way that can be undone. But you have to have a certain password to undo it. And here's the deal. If you don't have that password, you can't undo it. So what these hackers then do is they then tell these companies, hey, we just encrypted the hard drive of your server with all your customer data on it. And if you want the password to unencrypt it, you're going to pay us $1 million, 600 million bucks. And usually they'll do it through Bitcoin or something untraceable. And it works. It's called ransomware. And chances are it's happened to your bank. Banks don't talk about it because then everyone will pull their money from them. But trust me, it's happened and it continues to happen. And do you know what most companies do when this happens to them? They pay. That's right. They just pay the ransom. Because the alternative is basically the death of their company. And hackers know this. And that's why we're seeing such a huge amount of it right now. Ransomware is one of the worst viruses out there right now. So people ask me, they say, oh my gosh, Yark, you scared me to death about all these viruses that are out there. What kind of virus scanner should I get? What's the best virus scanner? I'm surprised none of y'all asked me already. I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of getting Norton. I'm not a fan of getting AVG. I'm not a fan of getting any of that garbage. If you have Microsoft, just stick with Microsoft Security. Stick with the one that comes with Windows. And the reason I say that is because whenever you add another program, an antivirus program onto your system, it's going to slow it down. It's going to cause problems. And it's not any better than what Microsoft's already doing. Because trust me, Microsoft has a security team that knows more about the viruses than even the people at Norton. You don't need to be spending extra money on antivirus software. What you need to do is close down the security hole in your phone. You need to be training your receptionist. Most hackers aren't going to come at you with a virus. They're going to con their way in through a phone call. Also, you need to tell your employees and your kids to stay on the good side of town. You know what I mean by that? Stay on good websites. I'll be honest, it's the kids that'll get you in trouble, but what I'm seeing in businesses, it's also some of your employees. And trust me, and I know this is a touchy subject, but can I just tell you as a security expert who's had many systems brought into me from many companies to look at, you've got employees looking at porn on company time. And these sites are notorious for viruses. Notorious. And 90% of the time, when someone says their computer got infected, when I go take a look at it, I find evidence that they were on sites like that. It's just the truth, people. It's just the truth. Also, you need to delete unknown email attachments. You get those all the time, and it's going to be something saying, hey, we need your signature. Hey, Amazon tried to drop off this, but we need to reschedule. It's worth $200. You're okay with paying that? If not, click here. And yeah, those work. You click on that, you're done. Your system has just been zombified. And you're saying, well, I would never click on that. Yeah, but your employees will. Trust me, it just takes one. It just takes one. You need to watch your systems for virus symptoms. In other words, after hours, do your employees leave their computers on? And if they do they seem to be, does the hard drive light just be going crazy? I mean, sometimes it might be downloading an update, to Windows, and that's normal. But does it just seem to go crazy with activity and no one's sitting there? You may want to have it checked. You may want to have it looked at. So let's talk about the secret to creating a good password, because I know you're going to give some out over the phone. Please don't. A good password's got to be more than 5 characters. And in fact, most companies that you create an account with won't let you create one that has less. Keep in mind, this is the whole security versus convenience thing, remember? Convenience would be like a 4-digit numeric PIN number, like your ATM card. Well, guess what? There's only 1,000 combinations, and a computer can go through those in seconds. That's why those little 4-digit pins aren't the best thing in the world, to be honest. And when I say 5 characters, you need to mix letters, numbers, and symbols. It can't just be a word. Don't you ever use a dictionary word as a password, because there's programs I can download now that will run an entire dictionary against your password just to see if it gets in. That's right. Don't use a dictionary word as your password. Change it regularly. Now, this is the part that gets you in trouble. This is the whole security versus convenience. At Pantex, they have to change their passwords like every month. And it has to be totally different every time. And they forced you to. You have no choice. And if someone leaves, a whole bunch of passwords get changed. And this is where those sticky notes come in. Never write it down. Now listen to me. Look me in the eye right now. You have an employee, or maybe it's even you, that has a little book in your desk drawer where you keep all your passwords. And you may chuckle, you may laugh, but I'm here to tell you, if I get access to your office as a hacker, I'm looking for that little book. And I'll just take pictures of it and leave. The reason you created that little book, that little notepad, that little list of all your passwords is for high convenience, because you can't remember your passwords. I understand that. But it also makes a one-stop shop for hackers. And like I said, that's what I'm looking for, sticky notes, because everyone writes passwords on sticky notes. They do. Sticky notes are the most valuable form of paper in a trash can. The most valuable. Never tell anyone what your password is. Because here's the deal, you'll be on vacation and someone says, hey, I need access to this file. Hackers know you're on vacation. Trust me, all they do is watch your Facebook. See all the pictures you're sending from the Caribbean. So they pretend to be an employee saying that they've got a presentation they're doing and they have to have access to blah, 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 blah. You don't want to leave the beach, so you give it to them. And in your mind, you're thinking, you know what, I probably ought to change that when I get back. But you don't. So let me give you some strategies on coming up with good passwords. So pay attention. This is probably going to be the most valuable part of this entire talk. The first strategy is the abbreviation strategy. The abbreviation strategy works like this. Remember I told you not to use a dictionary word. But what you can do is you can use a phrase, a sentence, or a quote that you can remember very easily. Some people use Bible verses. Some people use poetry. So for instance, there is a phrase I will never, ever, ever forget, and it's Mary had a little lamb. Now that would be too long for a password. But if I take the first letter of each word, M for Mary, H for had, A for A, L for little, and L for lamb, I get M-H-A-L-L, M Hall, which is not a real word. And the thing about it is I will never remember M Hall, but in my mind I'll remember Mary had a little lamb. And when I type my password in, that's all I have to, don't say it out loud, obviously. That's all I have to remember. It's Mary had a little lamb. And I type the first letter of each word. You can do it with a quote. You can, like I said, do it with a Bible verse. Do it with something that you will never forget. A phrase, a quote, something. And it will create a tough to guess password unless someone figures out your quote. Now that probably won't be enough because you notice there's no numbers in it. There's no symbols in it. It's just letters. That's where the second strategy comes into play. The second strategy is this. Every password needs to be different, and you've been told that. You've been told never to use the same password twice, or don't use the same password on every website. Now, I know some of you do because you just can't remember them. I get that. So here's how you get past that. I told you that I have over 100 passwords, and every single one of them is different, and I will not forget any of them. Here's how. So maybe you come up with that M Hall. So you remember Mary had a little M-H-A-L-L. But then I'll pick a number that means something to me, like 42. For whatever reason, that number. Maybe it's my lucky number, whatever. So M Hall 42. Then I'll put a dash because you need to put something. You need to put a symbol of some sort. It could be an exclamation point. It could be a period. It could be question mark. It could be whatever you want. But trust me, if you do this, if you have some letters, numbers, and symbols, you'll pass everyone's test to make a password. So M Hall 42 dash. Now listen closely. Here's where it becomes different. After the dash, I might put the first or the last letter in the .com. So for instance, if I'm on Amazon.com, then my password to Amazon might be mhall42-a. You see what I'm saying? Or it might be mhall42-n, like the last letter. And that way, no matter what website I'm on, I can remember that the last letter, what makes this password different, is whatever either the first letter or the last letter in that .com is. And I can just look up the address and know what it is. And that way I've done a different password for every single site I'm on. Now, the only danger in that is if someone figures out your strategy. You can never tell anybody, or else they'll be able to figure out every password you've ever done. It's what I do. And I have different passwords for everything, and I've never told anyone how I do it. Any questions on anything I've gone over? Are you scared? Did I scare the DBs out of you?
Well, Lori and I went to a luncheon today, and there was somebody that was talking about this same topic, and he sufficiently scared us. So you've just kind of added on to that. Uh,
Sleep well.
I, I, I do have another question. If if you get an email and it has a link in it, is there a certain link combination or something that you can look at and say, no, I'm definitely not clicking this link. I know this is not right.
No. No. Nope, 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 nope. Nope, there is no secret I can give you on that. Because
Okay, not Bitly or Owly or anything like that.
used to be, But now what a lot of these hackers are able to do is mask the addresses and they look legitimate. Like it might actually say Amazon.com when you look at it.
Mhm.
When in reality, they're faking what we call faking the email headers.
Mhm.
Okay. And so the link that you're actually clicking on is not going to Amazon.com, it's going to somewhere else. So you have to look for, you have to ask yourself, why, what did I order? You can't just,
Mhm.
there's nothing you can look for. It's not like you're Sherlock Holmes that can say, oh, look, the evidence shows it's fake. Not anymore. Not anymore. They're good at this.
Mhm.
So you've got to realize that if Amazon is asking you to confirm an order, you'd better log into Amazon first and make sure you even have an order.
Mhm.
But Amazon's not going to even do that. They're going to send you email confirmations, but they're not going to be like click here and not like that. And so,
Mhm.
back in the old days, you could rely on poor English. And believe it or not, some of these foreign hackers do have terrible English, and you can kind of catch on to that. But that's going away as well. It's we're at the nightmare level of this kind of stuff now. And so what I would do is I wouldn't depend on the looking for any particular pattern. I would verify outside of clicking on anything. I wouldn't even click on it. I would just go to their website
Mhm.
and check to see if there's any issues.
If you
I've
hover your mouse over the so-called link, it'll show you what it really is. And it's up to you to make sure you're not clicking on Amazon.
a lot of times
Oh,
that'll work. 90% of the time you're exactly right. But there are ways to fake those headers. And you got to be careful. You got to be real careful. And so I just tell people, if someone is asking you, if some email is asking you to click on something, you just need to be aware of what you're clicking on. Tough. It's tough. We're all going to get bit. I've had to cancel credit cards because
mm,
I mean, it's happened to me. You just, and it's probably already happened to y'all and you don't even know it.
mm,
It's
The
just,
company I
they're getting,
work for has something called Mimecast. And what it does is it examines the emails coming in, cuts off the spam, sends this stuff to you. If it's a link it doesn't recognize inside the email, then Mimecast is going to stop you at that point and say, are you sure this is a safe thing to do? And then you have to acknowledge it. So there's multiple steps. You have to be really wanting to go someplace.
yeah. And it's going to slow you down and going through your email, won't it? And like I said,
Going through my email, yes.
that's high security, low convenience. And I remember
Well, no,
stuff
it
like
doesn't slow
that.
me down. I'm the slow point, not my email. I
I
go click
remember
it.
there was something I had that did that too. And every email, I mean, every email that came in, I had to approve. And
No,
eventually,
I don't have to.
oh yeah, and eventually it got to the point where it was okay, but I kept having false positives. And so yeah, like I said, Mindcast might be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I haven't tried it. So, if it helps, then I say do it. But remember what I said in the very, very, very beginning on my first slide. Every one of us has to find that balance between security and convenience. And it's different for everybody. It is different for everybody.
so are a lot of the coordinated attacks, like for ransomware, are they coming from like Russian boiler rooms or Chinese boiler rooms that have nothing but hackers in there trying to attack, see if they can get through? Or is it smaller groups as well now?
Well, politically, it's very easy to say that it's coming from those two particular countries. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and that's very easy to just say. The problem is, a huge amount of countries that these are coming from are very poor countries,
Mm-hmm.
and they make a lot of money this way for their country. Like North Korea, good example. North Korea, they have some of the best hacking groups on the planet, and that's because they make a ton of money doing this because that country is so poor.
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria, it's did you know that its number two source of income is these kinds of scams? the
Wow.
number 2 source in Nigeria. You know, and I'm telling you, it's easy to say that it's these other countries, and in some cases it might be. But if you're good at this, you're going to make it look like it's someone else, because you don't want it to be obvious where it's coming from. And so it's easily bantered about for political reasons.
Hmm.
But remember, when it all comes down to it, it's about money for the most part.
Well, my Yahoo email was hacked one time and it sent out the, please send money. I'm stuck in Europe or somewhere. And I did hear from a lot of people that I hadn't heard from in a long time. It was kind of nice.
They were all worried about you.
They really were. So I had a couple of days of, catching up with people. So are there any more questions? Just put them in the chat, unmute yourself, anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question for Eric. Eric, what do you think about the liability insurance for small business?
Oh, cyber insurance.
Yeah.
Think it's necessary?
I'm beginning to think that is more important. Okay, more and more important, because especially with ransomware, you're putting yourself at a big legal liability. If you lose information for a client, I mean, I tell people this all the time, and hear me. The most valuable asset you have in your company is not your building, it's not even your employees. The most valuable asset you have is your information. And they say that half the companies that lose access to that information are not in business in 1 year. So yes, I would highly, highly, highly get insurance covering you in that case. I don't have a particular company. I don't have a particular company I'd recommend, but I would definitely research that. I would
Thank you,
add that
Eric.
as a writer. Add that as a writer onto your, what do they call that clause? Errors and omissions. Yeah, on your errors and omissions. That's usually a clause you can add on for just a few dollars.
Excellent question. That was discussed at that luncheon as well. The cybersecurity insurance is critical. Now, if you handle nothing but data information. Other questions? Thank you for that.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and talk some more about what we have coming up here. Okay. Eric, as usual, it was great. I'm glad that we're having you back in October. That's going to be a good one as well. I just want to remind everyone that you'll be receiving a survey after this webinar, and please take a moment to fill out the survey and let us know how we can better serve you. What other topics would you be interested in hearing about? We use that information to improve our services here. We do have some upcoming webinars. I don't know if everyone got to attend the Money Smart Startup Businesses Part 1 yesterday, but it will be on our YouTube channel. That's on the 24th. On the 25th, Ashley Cook is going to be back to talk about how to get knockout testimonials. She's very interesting when it comes to copywriting. Then we end our Money Smart for Startup Businesses on August 31st, back with Rebecca. Then September 6th, Rebecca's back with a new one, creating a bankable loan proposal. And we have parts 1 and 2, September 6th and 13th. There's part 3 is coming up and later in September. So we'll have that date for you probably at the next webinar. Please, I think somebody just popped in.
Yeah, they were just saying thank you.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
You're welcome, Judy.
Just want to direct you all to the SBDC website. There you can register for webinars. You can get contact information. You can schedule an appointment with an advisor. You can get all sorts of resources on the site there for small businesses. Plus, we have a new tool on there called Size Up. It's a place where you can search and get your own data about your company, about your competitors, about the area, and it's a very powerful, powerful tool. You can go to our website that I just mentioned, or you can take a picture of that QR code that's up there on the slide there. It'll take you right to the website. I want to take a moment to thank our benefactors, those that keep us employed, the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office in Dallas, and our host college, North Central Texas College. We thank everyone for attending. Please tell your friends. We've got a whole host of webinars coming up throughout the rest of the year. Matter of fact, I can't believe we're already started talking about September and the rest of the year. But thank you all. Please join us again next week. And I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you all.